But as the saying says above, Mr. Lowe, it is time to go. So some of you may or may not be aware that Philip Lowe has been the Governor of the RBA, Reserve Bank of Australia, and it was announced only a few days ago that his contract beyond September will not be renewed, and Michelle Bullock is the likely replacement to be our Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia going forward from September. And whilst you don't want to see anybody in these times lose their jobs, there has to be responsibility and accountability for one's actions. Now let's just rewind a little bit here, folks. For some of you that may or may not know, Mr. Lowe came out only a few years ago saying that interest rates will not be rising until 2024. And as a local property agent on the ground who deals with people and their property aspirations every day of the week, we saw an incredible influx on the back of Philip Lowe's, Mr. Lowe's, the RBA Governor's advice that rates weren't going to go up until 2024. Now we all know, fast forwarding to today, what's actually happened with rates. Consecutive rate rise after rate rise after rate rise. And off the back of Mr. Lowe's advice some years ago, I seen it in my own life, in my own world and business. People were going out and acquiring property on the basis of the promise rates won't be going up until 2024. Thank you, Mr. Lowe, for that ill advice. And, you know, people were getting money back then, 1.97%, 1.9%. They were acquiring one property. Some people were even going out and buying multiple properties because money was so cheap. And this is where Mr. Lowe has to be accountable. And keep in mind, Philip Lowe is not backed by a private enterprise. He's on $1 million salary per year, thanks to us, the taxpayers. And whilst rates go up, if you've got lots of money in the bank, maybe like Mr. Lowe does, a couple $1 million in the bank sitting there, when you're getting 5, 6, 7% as rate goes up, these aren't the people that struggle. The wealthy ones at the top of their game that are debt, mortgage free, lots of money in the bank, they're not the ones that struggle. In fact, the opposite happens for them. They actually reap the rewards when rates go up. But it's the everyday, lower to middle class battler, like you and I, who have mortgages, that really get impacted and affected by the rate and the volume of these consecutive interest rates that we've seen. And I'm here to tell you now, we haven't seen the full signs and effect of this. And I've come out very clearly on record, if you've been following my local updates regularly, I've said the real test from all of this economic climate, stimulus and interest rates and inflation will come at the tail end of this year. And on the ground right now, the first sign of that as a local property person is mortgage distress. And just coincidentally, in the last week, I myself have seen 3 mortgage distress, mortgage in possession sales come across my email to submit proposals for and on. The only saving grace right now, we're incredibly undersupplied. We continue to be 35, 40% undersupplied of properties available for sale. Our auction clearance rate is the best across the country. We're hovering over 80%, and we're still seeing a lot of demand coming from a migrational push. But we're also starting to see a few more properties trickling onto the market. And the real test of all this will come in September. That's where this will really be known, because come September, everyone is out of their fixed rates pretty much. Over 800,000 households and mortgages across Australia come out of their fixed rates from some 2-3 years ago. And I talk to a lot of people every day, and there are some that are getting by and doing okay, and there's some that are struggling. There's some people that I've spoken to that only bought 15, 18, 24 months ago. Their payments have gone up $650, $750 per month. Now you imagine trying to find that extra resourcing of money if you're a single person and a single income with single commitment of your mortgage. It's hard. So, Mr. Lowe, thank you for your service. Thank you for, I guess, being paid $1 million of our taxpayer dollars. Thank you for your ill advice from some years ago. And thank you for the headwinds and the uncertainty that we're likely to navigate based off your poor, informed advice. And my tip to any of you watching this when it comes to property, because I know there was people that made decisions off of Philip Lowe's advice 2-3 years ago that rates won't change, guys and girls, until 2024. This is from a man, if you recall, who came out and said, maybe stay at home more, don't go out, or don't turn the heater on. That was his advice, Mr. Lowe's advice. Don't go out, don't live and enjoy, do nothing, just exist in your home, don't even turn the heater on during these cooler months. And unfortunately, Mr. Lowe and his ill advice did influence people to get out there into the property market, to go out and buy whilst the money was cheap. And, you know, whilst interest rates back then, 1.97%, 1.98%, you know, there's probably a buffer ceiling where people were being approved at about 3.5%, 4%. We'll have a look at rates right now. 6.5%, 7% could be on the horizon. So there needs to be responsibility, there needs to be accountability. It's time to go, Mr. Lowe. But I just want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, this is why it's really important to speak to somebody who's actually doing the work on the ground, who has mortgaged themselves, who is not on $1 million taxpayer-funded salary per year. Because if we only rewind to when COVID first started, if you recall, in 2019, again, all these economists, all these financial experts, again, backed by big salaries, generally by the bank, or like Mr. Lowe, by the taxpayer, came out and said our housing market was going to collapse by 25-30% thanks to COVID. Here we are, 2023. You'll know what it's done locally. It's done the complete opposite. So, Mr. Lowe, goodbye, good riddance to you. Maybe it's time to enjoy a very fruitful retirement, I'm sure, off the back of the taxpayer-funded salary that you've had for some years. Looking forward to see what Michelle Bullock can bring to the table. Hopefully some compassion and true empathy to what everyday Australians that I'm meeting and sitting within their lounge rooms and their homes every day, and the stresses, the pressures that are going on right now. But the appointment's one thing. The action will speak volumes as to what Michelle Bullock does for the RBA and us as mortgage holders for the remainder of 2023. 2024, folks, that's going to be the year. That's going to be the interesting time. As always, thanks for joining me on the couch for a coffee. Just a quick chat. If you've got any questions, any comments, any feedback regarding this sort of information, I know it's pretty straight to the point. This decision was well overdue. Leadership, tenure over, time for a new leader to step in and be accountable for this, whole inflation and rate rises. And look, you can't just blame inflation for what's happened with these interest rates. I think there's a bit of an agenda. Do we head into a recession in 2024 similar to the back of what happened in the GFC of 2009, 2012? Well, only time's going to tell. And what's going to be really important for the remainder of this year is that supply, demand, and that continual migrational push that we are experiencing. But keep your eye, folks. If you're looking to make a move, it could be better to do it sooner rather than later. But what's really pivotal, whenever you make a move, have a look at what supplies on the market in comparison to that of your home before you make a strategy to get your home onto the market. As always, if you've got any property aspirations or questions, I'm always just a call, DM, email away. But whatever you do, have a sensational Tuesday. Make sure you keep warm, because it's fresh out here. Bye for now, folks. Cheers.